networking, let's get back to work. We will now talk about a passionate subject and accomplished subject, and that is that of drones with many limitations and restrictions to fly them. So the first expert that will be talking about drones will be Daniel Tena from the Bidasoa Center. Let's welcome Danny. Good morning. I work in a vocational education and training center in Bidasoa, and we work in the sphere of drones. In the last 3 years, we've developed an innovation program from the regional ministry, trying to see what the real applications could be for these tools and seeing how we can transfer some of these real applications to the education sector. As I said before, we started in the year 2000 to include in the training content regarding the generation of tridimensional models from imaging, and we were pioneers when acquiring equipment to capture data, because at the end of the day a drone is a tool that allows us to fly some kind of sensor. In the year 2010 we acquired drone that was 40,000 euros at the time. Now we can talk about those that we have nowadays that do something similar and have a cost of 1,000 to 1,500 euros. So there has been a big reduction in cost, and we've developed projects regarding topography, cartography, mapping, detection, and all the applications that the different sensors that we have incorporated has allowed us to do. And I'm going to start by asking a question. Why do we need to adapt ourselves? What do we need to change the methods? Up until now, we had tools that were useful. What do you see here? Probably many of you don't see anything and others see points. This is a query with 8,000 topographic points. We would need a team of 2 to 4 people and 4 to 5 working days, and the activity in the query would need to stop. The machines wouldn't be able to be running. Now we're in the year 2016. If we were in 2010, we probably wouldn't continue with the talk. This would be everything we could do. We would use a GPS, and that would be it. But what happens if we go on to the next slide? Well, now we have 23 million points in this same query. One person working for 1 working day, and we have an operative machines in the query. So we go from 4 or 5 people working for a week to get 1,000 points to 1 day and 23 million points. So there's a really big difference. What we've observed in these years is that on the one hand, the revolution comes from the sensors, not only the platforms, the sensors that can be moved by the drones. And on the other hand, that our sector is going towards a model where we need less workers, but more specifically skilled workers. So we've been working in the last years, seeing what type of these technologies can be applied, and we've detected what a professional needs to be able to handle drones. We should not forget that drones are just one more tool that is going to facilitate it to our students so that they can access the labor market. There's a part of a regulation in the use of drones, and since the year 2014 we have a regulation, and those that want to handle it for a professional use, they need to comply with this specific regulation. We also see that photography and video are also very important because there's a real application through drones, and with the use of conventional cameras, we can obtain a very good quality. And topographic cameras also allow us to study, for example, leaks of heat in a building. And there are many other sensors that in very few years have become part of the market and that allow miniaturization and the use of sensors and the capturing of images and data that before we could only capture through satellites with a smaller spatial resolution. So last year, together with the EVAC, we developed a program on professionalization, trying to imagine the skills needed for such professional. And we saw four parts that should be included. First of all, the regulation that tells us what a pilot needs and how the pilot can become a skilled pilot. Then photography and video with drones. Then everything having to do with applied teledetection and photogrammetry to apply all the software offered in the market. And then maintenance and repair of equipment so that the pilots can repair those aircrafts that they are using. We developed a specialization program and we hope that we can start with it very soon. But as the person responsible for the project, we daily receive calls and emails, and there's a great demand of information. What's happened in the last 2 years after the passing of the regulation has been incredible. In these 2 years, we've had 1,400 new drone operators that also have pilots and that want to work with this equipment. Therefore, there's a great demand of training. In November last year, in response to this demand, the Vocational Education and Training Center decided to provide a course, but not a conventional one, but a course in which we highlighted all the technical aspects. I consider, and I've seen through the years, that since the legislation or the regulation was passed, there has been a bubble regarding the training for drones. Many courses have been created, but those that only taught the handling of the equipment. But the handling of the equipment is not a professional activity in itself. Nowadays, those that have done these courses will be the ones working in this sector. But what's important is what we're able to do with the data that is gathered and captured by this equipment, what is the added value, and what are the real solutions provided to the market and the companies to whom we provide services. In 2 weeks, when we offered this course in November, without advertising the course, we had enough people for the course in 2 weeks. A course that went from December to the end of the school year. We had 245 students, and the profile is quite diverse for these students. Professionals from different sectors, professionals from the sphere of topography, of photography, of the educational sector. And this type of professionals, many of them have found a practical application to what they've learned. There are also many people that believe that to handle a drone, they needed some kind of training, but that is not so if you're not going to use it professionally. Most of the students came from the Basque Country, other regions in Spain, and France. We've offered 5 courses. The first 2 give a response to the need of obtaining an accreditation to be able to pilot drones, and then we have one based on topography and cartography, another one on the interpretation of images, and a 5th one on maintenance and repair. What are the aims of this course? Well, we're not a agency that has the approval of the state agency for air safety, but we've created the platforms to be able to work. And we do believe that there should be a regulation because the one that we have nowadays is quite restrictive, but we need it because if not, the sector of drones of less than 25 kilos would only work on the short term. So we have many people that don't come from the sphere of aeronautics and don't doesn't have the knowledge. So we need to be aware of that, and these people need to adapt to what exists nowadays. We've tried to have the highest quality amongst the teachers and the equipment. And in the last courses taught, we've also observed that the use of simulators facilitates the knowledge handling and to be able to maneuver according to the regulations. So it's really simplified the way of teaching. As I said before, a great amount of courses were offered, and some of them were 1,500 euros. So we've tried to create a course that could be accessible to professionals. Our training cycles, we believe, are very useful. And this year, the students have the accreditation as pilots after their second year of studies. And then we have also those courses for professionals that are the ones demanding this type of training. We've tried to be innovative and do things differently, not only to provide theoretical classes to the students, as they're going to be part of the sphere of drones. We've take them to an airport, they've flown, they've seen the meteorology, they had to do the checklist for the aircraft, which is very important for safety, everything regarding flying. So all those things that they've studied in theory are brought into practice, and they're able to see the practical application, and also they are aware of what is the danger when handling a drone outside the regulation. We've also tried to allow everyone to access these courses through an online platform. And then regarding the technical side of the courses, we've tried to provide a training analyzing the different softwares available in the market, and instead of teaching them how to use one only software, we've tried to provide them with the information about all the different softwares so that they are the ones that can decide what they really need, and for them to choose the software that would adapt better to their services they're going to be providing. And we've also tried to do something that is quite complex, and that's to include in the courses not only working with set examples, that is what we usually do. We've tried to include the needs of the students. If we have students working in queries, we've tried to include examples that would be useful for them. We've also had students that worked in the research of traffic accidents. So we've also tried to work on this type of cases, always adapting our courses to the real needs of our students and trying to allow them to learn things that they can apply in a practical manner, for them to learn processes. The main idea has been to be able to collaborate so that this sector becomes bigger, because we've talked a lot about drones and what they can do, but there are very few real applications and services provided by companies. And in my last slide, I would like to talk about our personal idea. And this is the path that has been followed and what we would like to do in the future. In the year 2014, 2015, as I said before, we developed the specialization programs. We've started these courses, and from here onwards, up till the year 2019, we would like to get the specialization program started. And regarding the new regulation, we've observed that the public educational system doesn't have the capacity to provide certificates to pilots. We can issue our own certification, but they're not valid before the Spanish agency. So this is something that we should progress on, and to find a way in which we become stakeholders and we are as important as other training centers. So we're not demanding anything that's too complex. And that's what I wanted to talk about. This has been our experience, and summing up, I would like to say that I have been surprised by two things. First of all, how we've simplified the handling of drones, everything regarding its operation. We've reached levels in which a flight planification can be done in a tablet, and you can execute the flight, obtain the images, and then it lands. So if we think about professionalization, we always need to think about what comes behind and how we can provide an added value to those products. On the other hand, something that has also caught my attention is that when teaching this professional courses, I don't know if you've provided this type of lifelong courses, but usually students are highly motivated, and I've also seen that have been 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old students that are highly motivated, something that I hadn't seen for a long time. So it is a world that generates hopes and expectations, but as professionals of the educational sector, we need to train and show what the real expectations are. So we're working with aircrafts, but still we need to try and transmit to our students that just handling the aircraft is not a profession in itself. What's important is what we can do with all the data gathered through those sensors and those drones. We had almost 40 minutes for both of us, and I've taken my 20 minutes, so I'll now leave the floor to